everybody, Mike Sweeney here, driver of the 04 Nissan Nismo 370Z for AM Performance. Doing our first installment of the question and answer segment we're going to be featuring on our Facebook page. I know a lot of you are really interested in what we're doing with the race car builds, but apparently we're not getting you the information you want. So I figure we'll jump right in. Andrew Latus had a question about our brake duct routing. I'd love to show you it on the car, but the car is in a million pieces right now. So instead, we took some of those pieces and we'll just talk about it right here. Starting at the very front of the car, we are not allowed to make any extra openings in the bumper cover. So we're forced to work with the stock Nismo bodywork, which really for the street guys is a good idea because it's always sad taking a hole saw to your really expensive Nismo bodywork. And we have some very labor-intensive aluminum ducts that we've hand-formed and TIG welded and everything, and that's what we're running on the race car for now. But we've sent those out to be molded for carbon layout, and in the future we'll be using a carbon setup, which will be a lot easier, a lot cheaper to reproduce. That obviously leads us into our brake duct hosing. Nothing too special about this. The big thing is double wall. If the wire that reinforces this is showing on the inside, apparently it has a pretty big effect on the flow rate of the air in the duct. Moving on then, the most important part for our ducting, believe it or not, is this little caliper mount, which, if you just hack this out of aluminum, you don't really have any good place to put the air where it's going to do any good. So what we've done, this is our right front caliper right here, which mounts up into the car, and then our backing plate. These are, again, handmade by AM Performance, and this is really the trick. This sits right in here like that, and our brake hose then comes right into this. We run the hose right along the outside of the frame rail. It's the only place to put it. The only place you have to cut to do this is the fender liner, the plastic fender liner. But what this does is instead of just blowing relatively cool air in the general area of the brake, we're actually introducing it. The brake rotor sits right here and it forces it into the inside of the brake rotor, where then the air is sent through the rotor. This has a much, much bigger cooling effect than just pointing a hose full of air towards your brake duct. So hope that answers some of the questions. Again, like I said, it all comes down to this beautifully engineered, pretty gorgeous machined plated part. So we had a couple questions. We had one from Steve Welsh, which was about, we used a 350Z as what we call the mule for a lot of our early development. We're still using it to mock up parts. We do intend to make some 350 stuff as well. So, but the question was whether or not the 3.7 into the 350 was a viable option. Obviously, the race car runs a VQ37. The 350 is a VQ35. The answer is it's not really a great option for the street guy. One, because that is a track-only car. You've got all sorts of emissions, loopholes to jump through with those kind of swaps. The other thing, to be completely frank, we're running the 350 HR heads because we don't need any of the awesome, cam timing trickery that the 370's motor offers. So we pulled those off. We're running the HR heads. The VQ37 block, outside externally to the car, it's the same thing. It doesn't know how big your engine is. It bolts up just the same, and with the 350 heads to the 350 chassis, it's all the same. So unless you're planning to develop a 3.7 liter motor with a 350 HR head, and you're really interested in tearing your motor out and pulling it apart and swapping heads and whatnot, really not a great option. But in the meantime, it's made for a pretty wicked little 350 development mule track car for us. So Jason Kennedy, one of our military buddies out in Alabama, he had a question about our bling and gold intake setup. To be frank, first off, I know there's a lot of people are going to be wondering why on earth we spend all the money to cover these in gold. Gold, despite being very heavy, and it's, as a brick, it's very heavy, but has excellent heat deflection properties, and we want to keep our intake air charge cool, obviously. And you can use such a thin layer of gold, it's actually lighter than using any other reflective material. So that's why we use gold tape. But moving on to the actual setup, nothing too tricky about the setup. What it is it's really the engineering to get the sizing right and get all the plumbing done in the space allotted. So the reason why it's difficult is you need a lot of engineering talent just for the packaging. What we have here, obviously this is the radiator support, the core support for our race car. You see right here, these are our hood pins, so that gives you an idea of where on the car we're talking about. Our primary air boxes, they pick up their air. Again, we're not allowed, just like on the brakes, we're not allowed to add any holes or modify the openings in the bumper cover, so we've got to take our air from the stock location. And these pick up their air, it's ducted in, it's above the radiator. And we fill these air boxes, which then we just have a pretty simple panel filter. Turns out panel filters flow really well, even though cone filters look really rad on your car domain website. But then we've made the back to the primary air box. We've made these runners that then hook up just like that. And again, these are hand fabricated, TIG welded aluminum. And then our stock MAF sensor, since we're running stock engine management, we have to use those. Stock MAF sensor slots in right here, and over here is the engine. So that's kind of where this whole intake setup ends. And obviously we also have to use the stock intake manifold. So all the trickery, like I said, it's packaging. There's not a whole lot of freedom we have once we get to the motor. So maximizing our airbox volume and finding an effective filter is really the name of the game. So there it is. We have a wicked 4-part question from Raul Calderon, so I'll see what I can do to address all 4 parts here and see if I get a passing grade. But first question was, did we experience the ICE mode, which is an ABS mode that the stock Nissan apparently suffers from in track use occasionally? And the answer is no, and the reason is because answering part 2 of this question, we're not running the stock ABS system. What we're running is a full racing system called Tevis, a Tevis system. It's a pretty unique deal. It works absolutely unbelievably well. The brakes on this car are better than any car that I've ever raced. I'm including non-showroom stock-based series in that. I mean, these things are absolutely awesome. One of the really unique things about the Tevis ABS system is one, not only its ability to adapt on the fly and move the brake pressure around the car the way it has to, but also the ABS valves in the controller are not they're not digital, they're analog, which is a really interesting thing because we've all gotten used to that ABS feeling when you go to the pedal and it starts pulsing away. And I'm pretty sure we all know what it feels like. I'm pretty sure none of us like it. The really cool thing about this system is the valves are analog. And so unless you're really paying attention, you really don't even feel the ABS working because the valves are continually adjusting their size as they vary the pressure to each caliper. So a really neat system. That said, we have had a 370 customer running our brake kit on his car. And set up properly, the bias on this car with our brake system apparently is pretty good to run without the ABS system. That again, obviously, is a track-only type of situation, but it is what it is. Having the very large, effective Brembo front brake system effectively changes the bias such that you'd like it, you'd prefer it to be in a non-ABS car. Moving on, Raul asked us about our oil cooler setup. And one of the neat things that we've been able to do is the 370 tends to run a little bit hot on track. But we've had no issues running in the very, very close confines of Continental Tire Sports Car Challenge traffic. Running bumper to bumper with cars blowing hot exhaust into into the front of your car. Our oil temperatures are rock steady around 200 degrees, and that is because of the oil cooling setup we use. And it's not a typical heat exchanger style, air to air. We use a water bath style heat exchanger. So as you can see, this whole thing's sealed. One of the nice things about packaging then means that you can put this basically anywhere in the car that you see fit. We have ours tucked behind the radiator, which keeps it out of harm's way. We did consider running this in the end tank of the radiator. The only reason we didn't is so that when AM Performance's idiot driver scatters a motor by trying one of the classic 4-3 upshifts, that sends material all through the oil cooler, and we don't have to change our radiator as well. So we run a separate unit, and basically it takes water from the radiator, and there's a heat exchange going between the oil running through the cooler and the water bath it's in. It helps warm up. Our car warms up very quickly, and then it holds rock steady temperatures at VIR we were seeing on a like a 75-degree day, temperatures of like 180 degrees, pretty much rock steady. So really neat setup. And the fourth part of Raul's question ties in with a couple other people asking about what parts we'll be releasing for the 370Z. We'll be releasing a fair amount, but in due time. Basically what we have to do is get through the prototyping phase, get our race team running smoothly with all the parts that we're developing, and we don't want to release anything until we've got the mileage under our belt to know that the parts are fully developed. So patience, Raul. I'm sure you would love to have a top 3 this season, but what would be a good finish for any race and place and points for the season? And do you see any other teams going with Nissan? Obviously, we'll take whatever the best finish we can get is, but turns out racing is really hard. Only one guy gets to win. So when we went to VIR this year, we knew we were going there. We were going to have a car that was down on power a little bit, and it proved to be true, but we've found out that our car handles very well, stops really well, and it's a nice car to drive, and we're constantly developing it. And it looks like we were able to, after taking a couple races off between VIR and Laguna Seca, which is our next race coming up, we've been able to find a little bit more power. And I think that for especially a twisty course like Laguna, which is my home track, and great, awesome place, and really fits the kind of classic sports car that the Nissan 370Z is, that's the kind of place where we really, I feel like we'll be able to fight pretty well in the top 10. We'd be thrilled with a top 5 finish. As for overall points in the season, it's a lot harder to finish well when you run 4 or 5 races when everybody else does 10. So we'll take wherever we end up there. This year, 2011, is a development year, and we've been doing gobs of development. So we went into this season knowing that the goal is to have a competitive, reliable package that we can then race in 2012 with an eye on the championship. And as for other teams going with the Nissan, we hope so. It's a great brand, and we've been thrilled with both the potential and the performance of this car straight out of the box. As I said, it's a great car to drive. It's proven to be very reliable. It's proven to be pretty tough. As we get further and further along with the development, I think people are going to start to see that it's a very capable chassis as well. So it could be a very good package for the GS class. So whether or not anybody else wants to run it, that's up to them, but we think it's a pretty good car ourselves. So Will Clark asks about when can we get some in-car videos, and then he asks to see our data as well. Already we're posting videos up on there's an AM Performance Racing YouTube channel, and we'll also put all that stuff up on our Facebook page as well, which clearly you guys all found because that's where we got these questions. We also have a video section on our website, amperformanceracing.com. We plan on being as proactive as we can, getting in-car videos and track updates and stuff like that updated so that you can, even if you can't make it to the race, you can feel like you're there a little bit more with us. As for seeing our telemetry, I don't know how much we can let you know. Ben Novak and Brent Jackson were both asking about parts availability. I hit on this earlier, answering Raul's question, but we're continuing to design, to develop, to prototype, and test parts until we're done with our development phase, and we've got all the miles under the race cars that we need to prove that the parts are reliable. We're going to be holding off on parts development, but know that we're developing stuff, and we're not just going to throw the drawings out when we're done. So at the very least, though, we're going to wait until the off season and revisit that question and determine what has a market and what we want to release. So if you want to buy something, let us know that you want it, and that'll help move it down the pipeline. So hope you guys enjoyed this. We'll be taking another round of questions pretty soon here, and really interested to hear what you guys want to hear about. So let us know.